I'm wondering if I should make a short post about language because I actually made a post about it before and it was something that was affecting me before and it is something that affects me. And I've only seen one other person make a post about this and like I just wonder if other people wonder about this or are affected about this whole idea of like native speakerism in English. Like, because I come from the Caribbean and I always considered myself initially to be like a native English speaker. But as I left the Caribbean and went out into the real world, and for example, where I live now, I live in Belgium. In the part of Belgium that I live in, they speak German, French, and maybe even a little bit of Dutch, right? So um, I like found myself, like I said, I did speak about the fact that I volunteered and I wanted to volunteer to help within the English speaking department in um where I lived. In the school where I lived, right? And yeah, I know you're probably thinking a crazy person like me shouldn't be allowed in a school. That's probably true. But I really wanted to be a part of the community. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted, and you would say, okay, then learn the language. I have. I do. Ich spreche Deutsch. Yeah. I do speak German. However, my German will never be as good as someone who is a native speaker, someone who is from here, someone who was educated in German. It makes a big difference. If you got to spend your formative years being educated in a language as opposed to me who's learned it as an adult and who has basically just learned it from Netflix and who, yeah, I can understand everything that they say, but for me to formulate sentences correctly, this is not going to be easy. It is not easy. I do not have enough experience. And yes, I am shy and embarrassed about my German. So that causes me to not be able to speak as much. Anyway, the point is, right, I try to help out in this, and then there are a lot of like, I have to face constantly that no one sees English as my native language. So it's like I'm seen as someone who my native language is whatever it is they speak on the island where I'm from, which is not English. It's that type of English. It's a pidgin of English, right? And therefore they don't have like confidence in my English. And there's like for them, if you have a degree, then it's better, of course. Well, for anyone, if you have a degree, it's better. But like the confidence in my English is very low. And I've seen somebody else speak about this on Facebook. He made several posts about this, and I thought like I completely relate. That person in particular was actually someone German from a region very near to where I live. And basically, he grew up with both English and German. He said that he grew up looking at TV. I think he's like really autistic or something, right? And he grew up with American TV somehow. I don't know how that happened. So he speaks English at a native level, and he also like took C2 test and he's passed all these tests, and obviously he speaks English. His English is probably even better than mine, so he speaks English, right? But because he is native German, and like of course his passport is German, and if anyone ever asks him what his he's born in Germany, he grew up in Germany, he never lived in outside of Germany, then people don't see him as a native speaker, but he sees himself as a native speaker because he grew up with the language and like he's been speaking it ever since he can think English. And I think that so many children today are speaking English from in a similar way because they grew up with YouTube and stuff. And they are also going to encounter this problem after a while that people are constantly going to be telling them, well, you're not a native English speaker, your English is not as good. But for them, they feel like that is their language. That's the language they speak. That's how, yeah, that's their best language. For you to come and say you don't speak English, to me, it's really hurtful on an identity level because it's like somebody is attacking your identity. But then this is like a kind of thing because it's like, do I get to define my identity or is there reality? Is it a reality that I am not a native speaker because I don't come from a country whose English people are trying to learn? Are the only native speakers really from America or Canada or the UK? Or are people like me native speakers? I don't know. It's really hard to tell. Is it just my ego that is bruised and I'm wrong and I'm not a native speaker, or am I a native speaker? This is really an interesting discussion, and it's very, because obviously I just speak what I speak, but I've never had any problems understanding other people's versions of English. I mean, and I grew up reading Jane Austen. I grew up in schools where we had to analyze Shakespeare. I mean, I have been studying English for my whole life as English, and I've never met another native speaker who didn't understand me or who I couldn't understand, regardless of whether they're from the UK or anywhere, really. So this is a really um, yeah, of course, this is something that only affects a minority of people, so it won't get a lot of attention, and most people don't care. But I care, and that guy on Facebook cares. And I think the future generation of people will care because I think that we're producing a lot of children who will speak English fluently and feel like if they own the language. And then they're going to be told, hey, you're not a native speaker, therefore your language is not good enough. Whatever your language is inferior. And then they're going to be put through all these tests like C1 and C2, and if they don't pass, then they're going to be made to feel like they're idiots, when the reality is that a lot of native speakers, if you put them through those tests, also will have problems or whatever, or may not pass better or worse. It depends. And I'm not saying that native speakers are dumb. I'm just saying that, yeah, it's complicated.